Alexis, a consultant here at Valiantys. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use assets with your Jira Service Management forms. Using assets and forms lets you link submissions directly to real data in your CMDB, whether that's laptops, software, vehicles, facilities, or anything else you're tracking. But first, just a quick refresher on JSM forms. So, JSM forms, also known as proforma forms or dynamic forms, these are a no-code form that you can use to add to your Jira Service Management requests. These are great for structuring input, adding validation, and customizing the customer experience without the needing for custom fields or screens. If you want to dive deeper into JSM forms, I'll link a separate video in the description that goes into a deep dive of JSM forms. So, why use assets and forms? This is where it's going to get very interesting. So, you can insert assets directly into a JSM form, and you can configure it to pull your object schemas. That means that your users can select real-time asset data from a drop-down or search field. For example, instead of asking a user to type which office their maintenance issue is in, you can let them pick from your actual office list and assets. This is going to give a more cleaner, more accurate, and far easier way to report on for your submissions. Common use cases for assets in JSM forms. So you have IT equipment requests. So pick a laptop or monitor that's available from inventory. You have onboarding that you are choosing from a standard hardware or standard software packages for the new hire that's coming in. You have facility requests like I mentioned earlier, so you could select a room, office, or building that's been set up directly within your assets. You can even use this for software access lists. So you could pick a license application and you can link it to the requester, link the application owners, vice versa. So let's go ahead and let's look at a real example. So we have our goal. Our goal is we're going to create a request type for users to request a new mobile device. But we only want to display approved options, and we only want the dropdowns to dynamically filter, so that way users are only going to see the relevant devices once they've picked the device type and the manufacturer. We could try and manage this with lots of custom fields and conditions, but using assets, we're going to be able to keep this clean and simple, easy to manage. So what we're going to need is we need the asset schema that's going to have those object types and those objects within it. We're going to need our asset custom fields. This is how we're going to call upon the data from assets. And then finally, we need our medium, so we need our JSM form and the request type. And of course, this JSM form is going to be attached directly to this request type, so when it is in the portal, it's going to be visible directly there to fill out and submit to. So with that, let's go ahead and let's take a look at what we need to configure first, which is our asset schema with our object types and objects. For sake of this demo, I've already pre-configured everything, so I'm just going to walk through those configurations. If you want to follow step by step, you can create as we go to see that final result. So I've created the following object types. I have manufacturer, type of device, phones, and tablets. Within manufacturer and type of device, I don't have any additional attributes within them, it's just the name, so we have our two options of phone and tablets. Manufacturer, we have Amazon, Apple, Google, and Samsung, which are going to be our brands or companies of these phones. And then I have phones and tablets. Each of these contain either phones or tablets, as well as additional attribute information. While some of this is optional, the only ones we need to configure in order for this dependency selection of asset fields is we need to link manufacturer and type of device directly to both the phones and tablets. And to do that under attributes, we just have to give a name. Under this, we select object. Then we're going to select the object type, and then you can select a type of link. And you can add these other things such as storage, price. You're more than welcome to add additional attributes. You'll see them when we go to the custom fields that you're going to be able to display more information both on the portal or on the agent view to see. So you can give those for viewing, however, they're completely optional. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look next at our custom fields. So we have 3 custom fields, and in order to create custom fields, we have to go to Jira Administration Settings, click on Work Items, go to Fields, and click on Create New Custom Field. And the type of field we're using is going to be Asset Object. And within here, I have created 3. I have Manufacturer, Type of Device, and I have Device Selection. The manufacturer and the device type are going to be straightforward. It's each going to pull objects directly from its object type, which is called out by this filter scope AQL. So that's manufacturer, and then here we have type of device. It's still called out in here, type of device for the object type. So these two are just going to spit out directly those objects. The device selection custom field is where it gets interesting. So going to this, I'm going to take a slight pause. And on the screen, you'll notice that when I talked about the object type equals, I was talking about this filter AQL scope, but you do see there's another one underneath of it called filter work item scope, and these are 2 filter options, and you don't have to utilize both. You can use one or the other, and these are different. So your filter AQL scope, that one's going to be just your static baseline filter. For example, only show objects that are the object type of manufacturer. It's only going to display that. That is it. There's no dynamic inserting. You can make it display inbound and outbound references, but in terms of a dependency of another selected field, that's not going to be gone within that. Now you have your next one, which is going to be your filter work item scope. That is going to be a dynamic filtering that happens in real time. This is where you're going to be able to reference other fields that are linked within the form. So you're going to be able to have these placeholders. So we see here that there's this $sign custom field and then an ID. This is how you're going to call out these dependency selection fields within this asset field. In order to find this ID, you're going to see this in the URL section when you are in the context menu of a custom field. Or if you're also configuring an automation, you'll notice that there's a new little bracket symbol that when you click that, you're going to be able to search for a custom field, and it'll also spit out the ID that way. This dot label, this is going to be that indicator field that you see this little tag for right here. In this scenario, this label is the name of the object, so that's what we're going to utilize that for. So we'll see here that in the filter scope, I didn't put anything, and that's because that this information that we need to display is dynamic and it's a dependency from other fields. Therefore, we're going to leave this one blank. So now let's break down the filter work item scope. So I am listing manufacturer, and I am telling it to look to the custom field that we made for manufacturer, which is going to pull the object types of that, as well as to pull and look at the selection of the custom field for the device type. And it's going to look at all objects in that schema, and it's going to say that if the manufacturer selected equals the option selected, and type of device equals the option selected, it's going to find the objects that have that matching. So notice how we did on those phones and tablets in attributes, we put in there type of device and we put manufacturer. That is how this work item scope is matching. So if manufacturer of Apple is selected and type of device is phone selected, that means any of the devices that are Apple iPhones will be selected. So in the scenario of that, we should see 15 Pro, 16, 16 Pro, and 16 Pro Max. So it's going to use a dependency to find those matching objects. And in here, this is where we can add those additional attributes to display if you so desire. So if you had color, if you wanted to do storage size, screen size. I have on here 2 different storages, as my storage attribute for my tablet and phone don't match up. However, to a user, they just see this information as X pipe, as many attributes you have. Therefore, this mismatching isn't really a big deal, but it is always recommended to keep your attribute namings the same. So with that, now we just have to go and look at our request type and our form. So we'll go back to our project, and under service requests, I have a request type called request new mobile device. And if I go within that, we're going to see here I have this attached form. And in this form, we have the summary field, which is custom linked to the summary. And then I have these 3 fields. I have brand of device, type of device, select a device. And each of these are linked to that asset custom field that we made. So this brand of device, this is only going to show the brands, which are the manufacturer right here. Type of device is only going to show phone and tablet. And then select a device, this is where we're going to have dependency, where based on what is selected in brand and type of device, it's going to show us the appropriate matching objects. I recommend in this one that you also make all of these fields required, as summary is always a required field, but also when it comes to select a device, nothing is going to appear here for data unless these 2 above have a data point. So it's recommended that you do that so that way it can't have someone submit this without selecting a device to submit to. Once we have the configurations, we just make sure we hit save, and now we can do the last step and we can go to the portal and we can see how this looks. On the portal, we are going to navigate to our project and our request type. So now we are in our request, so we'll go through and we'll start submitting. Notice that right now, without filling out anything, if I try to select a device, no options are going to appear. That is because it is dependent on both of these having a selection first. So we're going to start out by submitting, so we'll fill out the summary. And then we're going to start out by selecting our brand device. So we're going to select Samsung, and then we are going to select a tablet. And if we come into select device, now we're going to be left with options. So we can see here that there is a Samsung Galaxy Tab A, which is 128 gigabytes. Let's say that I wanted to, instead of seeing the tablets for Samsung, I want to see phones. Now I'm going to see all the phones here. So we have the Z Flip, the Z Fold. If I go to Apple and I leave it on phones, I'm going to see all of the available phones here. So I can scroll through and see the 16 Pro, Pro Max, and the 15 Pro. Now, there is one thing to note about this. So let's say that right now I go to Amazon. When I click on this, it's not going to clear out any of these. So even though Amazon and phones is a valid selection, iPhone 15 Pro is not a valid selection to Amazon. It's not going to clear this even though it's a dependency. So I could, in theory, right now hit send and it would send this ticket even though this is not a valid option. To combat this, what you can do is create an automation for Jira that once this ticket is submitted, it looks for the validation of these fields, and if it notices that this device selection isn't a valid, it can reopen the form, ping the reporter and say, hey, please go back and review this form. So that way they could come back in and say, oh yeah, that's right, sorry, Amazon Fire Phone is what I wanted, and they can then resubmit that form and have that valid submission. So that's how you can use assets in JSM forms to connect requests directly to your CMDB. I use devices in this scenario, but you can use the same pattern for office location, departments, contracts, applications, anything you're managing in assets. And you can even take it a step further with automation for Jira. For example, you can have your application list in assets, and when that is submitted, you can set the owners of that requested application as approvers. Or if you're using employees in your assets, you could search up and find that requester's manager and add them as a requested participant. Or depending on the type of request, it could look up and find and assign the right assignment group based off of the asset type selected. This is going to make your service desk form smarter, more user-friendly, and easier for your agents to manage. I hope that you take this knowledge of assets and apply it to your very own request processes. Thanks for watching.